Hi everyone! Well, we did it. We made it across the Sea of Cortez to Baja California. But just before we left, our daughter Beverly and her boyfriend Jose made a quick trip down to the boat. We enjoyed lots of good food, swimming, and Beverly and Jose checked out the zip lines at Cañon Nacapule. 5 zip lines zig back and forth across the canyon, and Lee and I enjoyed the experience vicariously. Just before departing San Carlos, we topped off our water and in the northerly wind tacked up the Sonoran coast to Bahia San Pedro, where we waited for the usual summer southerlies to fill in. We always seem to catch this bay at the wrong time. We were tucked in along the north side and we still experienced lots of rolling from a pre-existing southerly swell with a new twist. The north wind inundated us with an infestation of flies that originated from rotting fish at the fish camp on the north side. It is a gorgeous bay, and someday we may catch it just right. On the second morning, the south wind filled in and we left the coast of Sonora behind. Instead of proceeding directly across to Santa Rosalia, as many folks do, we angled a little to the north towards Bahia San Francisquito, a passage of 105 miles. We were excited. We were finally making the crossing, something we had worked towards for more than a year. Little did we realize we had so much more to learn about sailing our boat. On the way, we detoured to get a look at the island San Pedro Nolasco. Our lovely wind was soon disturbed by the island, and we found ourselves in a wind shadow. Eventually, we cleared the island, but as night fell, the wind piped up and was almost astern. The chop was confused, and it was difficult to hold a downwind course. When I came on deck at midnight for my watch, we had an accidental jibe while furling the Genoa. It was hopelessly wrapped upon itself, and we were unable to unfurl it. We ended up doing what we said we wouldn't do. We found ourselves motoring, which a lot of cruisers seem to do in the sea. At San Francisquito, I cranked Lee up the mast twice in one morning, but to no avail. We were not able to untangle the wraps. The clew and sheet attachment was buried under wraps, and we thought if we cut the sheets, we could extract the clew by rotating the furling drum back and forth. It didn't work though. It wasn't until we returned to San Carlos and our friend Nick, tracing the wraps from the top and using brute force, was able to untangle the mess. We have never had a furler before, and we definitely have to work on our technique. But I get ahead of myself. Back to San Francisquito. I was surprised how large the bay was. Somehow, looking at the map, I didn't grasp the scale. The bay itself has protection from most weather. One of our cruising guides suggested a possible summer anchorage on the western side, which is very scenic, by the way. However, we found the wind roared through a slot between the point and the shallow cove, and that placed us on a lee shore. We anchored to the east of the slot and were well protected. Also, our cruising guides indicated the cove was too shallow for most boats. Upon talking with other cruisers later, I heard different, so it will bear further investigation on another visit. We are finding that cruising guides need to be taken with a grain of salt. After a few days in San Francisquito, we made a move just slightly to the north to Cala Mujeres, which was our favorite spot of the whole trip. It's a little tight, but perfect for settled southerly weather. We anchored in 18 feet of water, and with the tides found ourselves as shallow as 11 feet. The water was very clear, the beach gorgeous, and we all settled in for a few days of swimming and exploring. At this time of year, the vegetation of Sonora is lush compared to the drought conditions we encountered in the Baja. But I was excited to explore and find plants I was unfamiliar with. I was not disappointed. I came across Euphorbia lomelii, also known as slipper plant, a well-adapted plant for the dryness. There were cacti I was familiar with, like this fishhook barrel cactus, and other cacti I had no clue what they were. An exciting discovery was this wild cotton plant. The flower looks a little like a hibiscus flower, and it is in the same family. At the north end of the beach, we encountered a little shrine. It's not the first time we have found shrines or memorials in small coves. It's poignant, and I always wonder what the circumstances were. While I traveled to shore for the plants, Blondie was thrilled to become a beach cruise missile, running up and down the length of the beach. Blondie has settled into being a great boat dog, with one exception. She does not go on the boat, and it is always an emergency when we get to shore. We have tried rugs used by other dogs, and my latest, a rug urinated on by a cat. Eventually, she ends up using the rug for other purposes than what it was intended for. If you have any suggestions, it would be much appreciated. Although the land of Baja is very dry, we found the ambient air to be very humid. On the morning after our arrival at Cala Mujeres, we were invaded by bees seeking the water from the heavy morning dew. Later, they invaded the cabin looking for further water and massed on the galley faucet. We got smart the next day. We put in our port screens and had screening over the companionway. Once the dew was dry, they left us in peace for the remainder of the day, except for an occasional scout. With our first boat, we made a lot of dumb mistakes. Now with La Brisa, we don't make the same mistakes, we are just making other dumb mistakes. For us, it's learning our boat. In the next video, which I hope to have out shortly, we will share more about our trip and an abrupt change in plans. So until then,